Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So I had some shoes in my cupboard that I wanted to tidy up a bit, and my old shoe rack wasn't very wide and it didn't make the best use of the space, so I decided to make one. So as always, as usual, I used some pallet wood. So I roughly wanted to work out the kind of width of the slats, and I wanted them to be quite narrow, and for that, to cut them down, I used the table saw. So I ended up with a nice pile of wood. And it was quite thick wood as well, so there was no chance of it bending in the middle. So the next thing to do was to work out the height, and I cut some pieces to make up the height, and that's going to consist of 4 pieces of wood. And for the other pieces, I worked out the width that I wanted, and that was determined by the space inside the cupboard. So for that, because it was 3 shelves, I needed 6 pieces. So now I wanted to roughly work out the depth of the rack. So I looked at the old rack as a rough guide, and then I measured and cut some support pieces which would determine the width or the depth of the rack, and that also helped to support any weight from the shoes. So I ended up with 3 piles of wood, the uprights, the sort of the cross members, and then the support pieces. And now it was time to attach those support pieces to the uprights. So I measured out the height of the shelves. The original shoe rack had 4 shelves, but I found they were a bit cramped, the shoes, so I made this one 3 shelves, and because it was wider, it would be able to hold more shoes as well. So to put this together, I used some glue and some screws. And you can see I'm using 4 screws on each section. Not strictly necessary, but these were quite small screws, and I didn't want any movement, so I had plenty of them, so I just used 4. And for the tops, I used the same type of screw but a gold colour, because this would be on display and I just wanted it to look a bit nicer. And later on, these top parts will form like small handles, so that the rack can be carried around. So now I wanted to drill some pilot holes in these upright support pieces for the cross members to go on. So I took a cross member and used the thickness of that as a guide to make some markings so that I could work out where the pilot holes needed to go, and that would be roughly in the centre. So I also countersunk these as they would be on the outside of the rack. I wanted them to sit nice and flush. So for those top pieces, I wanted to create some handles now. So I just marked up some wood. And cut out 2 handles. And to attach them, I used some glue and 2 screws. So now I wanted to fill in any holes, any obvious holes, because this was quite rough pallet wood. So I just use a multi-purpose filler here and a card scraper. So when that was all dry, it was time to give it all a good sanding down. And I started off with I think 60 grit and went down to about 120 grit. So now it's time to assemble it all, and again I glued it and screwed it. And then I drilled some pilot holes through those cross members. I then gave it all a final sanding with some wet and dry paper. And then just brushed it down to remove any sawdust and dust and bits. So then it was time for the finish, and I decided on some boiled linseed oil, and I thought that would bring out the grain nicely. And as I was doing this, I noticed that I think there's a couple of types of wood amongst these pallets that I used. I'm sure at least one of them is pine, but I have no idea what the rest are. So if you can recognise these different grains, please let me know in the comments below. And for this I used a makeup brush, and you can see there my girlfriend's helping me with just applying that last bit of oil. And I find that a makeup brush just really helps to apply the oil. It's really soft. So then I gave it all a wipe down to remove any excess oil. And that was it all finished. So it took a bit longer than I expected in the end, but in the end it was nice and strong and solid, and it looked quite nice. So now it was just time to get the shoes on. So if you found this video useful, please remember to like and also comment. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if you have any tips for me, please let me know as well. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.